So if you want to build a catalog and you're trying to get to that point where you have 10 or 12 tracks to send to a library, the question is, how do you decide where to get started? Should you be using reference tracks? Should you be, using maybe an artist as a template? Like, how do you get started with that entire process? Because honestly, it could be kind of daunting, right, to look at 10 or 12 tracks ahead of you and go, how the hell am I going to get that done? I totally understand that, and I appreciate that. So what I would recommend is definitely go find reference tracks, okay? You can get music libraries. You can obviously search YouTube. You can go to iTunes. I don't care where you go, but go find really high quality licensable tunes and in a style that you love, okay? If you're actually even to that point where you're like, well, I don't know, I could do the hip hop, I could do rock. Again, zero it down into the genre that you probably feel the most in your heart, in your soul, in your bones, that you just, even if you weren't doing music licensing, even if you weren't trying to do this full time, you'd still be jamming out to that music, you'd still be making it. It's the thing that you love. That's where you start, okay? You always got to start with where your heart is, because if your heart's not in this, you are not going to make it in the long run, because you're going to make so much music. There's so much music to be made in this business, and if you're not loving the music that you're making, you are going to hate life very quickly, very quickly. So make sure you love, obviously, what you're doing. But absolutely go find yourself either a reference track or an album or a series of reference tracks that basically have the quality, the licensability, and maybe some that are already accepted into libraries. You need to go find that music. You need to go find the exact place that you want to be in terms of the quality of the mix, of the producing, of the mastering, and do your best to emulate those sounds. That's what you really need to do. I am in this business now over 10 years, and I don't really start stuff without a reference track, guys. And I've again, you would think I'm only recommending this to people that just get started. No, like even producers that have been in this business for longer than me, 20 years, they still use reference tracks. When they get an opportunity, they don't just fly blind and just, well, I just created something, we'll see what happens. Professionals don't do that. We don't have the luxury to do that. Okay, that's what we did as amateurs, as just people having fun with music, kind of getting lost in the creativity of it all, which is still good to do once in a while. But when it's full-time income, when it's your job, and we're talking about being a serious producer, no, we don't have the time or the luxury to be able to experiment with our time in the studio. We have limited studio time, and so what you need to do is have a blueprint in front of you. You need to have a guide sheet, and you have something that tells you, here's where you are, there's where you want to go. And it just helps you so much, and it gets you to those places faster. So you understand what kind of instruments should I be stacking this up, what kind of a structure should I have, how long should a track be, how loud should a track be. All of those questions can be answered with a reference track, and it's such a incredible thing that you can absolutely do that. And the way that I describe it is that it's basically like getting free tutoring from world-renowned composers or just some of the most incredibly talented people that you've ever heard of, and you get it all for free with reference tracks. Okay, obviously. Big disclaimer, do not rip off anybody's music. Don't copy their chord progressions. Don't copy their leads. Don't make a mimic of their track. Follow in the spirit of what they've done. Okay, you can create something very similar, and a lot of times that's what you're going to be asked to do in the licensing business, but again, we want to stay away from infringement, copyright infringement, and stealing people's stuff. Okay, it's really not a good thing to do. But absolutely, reference tracks, all day long. Okay, that's why I included that with Sync Academy. I have my orchestral reference tracks video, which walks you through. If you guys haven't watched that, you do need to go watch that. It walks you through every consideration I go through, the instruments, the mood, the style, the feelings, the transitions, all of these elements. You need to be aware of them. Okay, it's a little bit more complicated than just they had horns in their track, so I put horns in my track. Look, I made an orchestral track. No, a little bit more complicated than that. Not rocket science, but there's some more things that you should be definitely aware of to make sure that you're delivering licensable music for this industry.